Yes, thank you, Jim. For those who don't know me, my name's Neil Jacklin. I'm president for our union. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this important town hall. Again, like Jim said, it is an open board meeting. I'd like to begin by introducing the board by taking roll. The board is composed of the statewide officers, the bargaining team, and the chapter presidents. So I'm going to start by calling out the first name on the board, and hopefully they're in attendance. If not, I'll just move on to the next one. So when I call out your name, would you please state your full name, title, and campus for the audience? Okay. Pete Rao.
This is Pete Rao, I'm Vice President for Organizing, and I'm from San Marcos.
Thank you, Pete. Rocky Sanchez.
Rocky Sanchez, VP for Representation from Cal Poly Pomona.
Thank you, Rocky. Catherine Hutchinson.
Catherine Hutchinson, Vice President for Finance, CSU Channel Islands.
Now we're going into the bargaining team. Tessie Reese.
Unmute, Tessie. Oh, sorry. My lips were moving, but you couldn't hear me. Hi, Tessie Reese, Unit 2 Chair from San Diego State. Welcome, everyone.
Fortunato Garcia. Okay, we'll move on. Tony Spriggans. Okay. Rich McGee.
Rich McGee, Chair Unit 9, CSU San Bernardino. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Rich. Pam Robertson. Don Marino. Annabelle Cianco.
Annabelle Cianco, Unit 7 Vice Chair, CSULB.
Marty Brenner. Steve Tillinghast. Now we're going into the chapter president, Steve Tillinghast. Jessica Westbay. Gina Voigt.
Gina Voigt, President, Chief Stewart, Sonoma State Campus. And by way, quick shout out to all the Sonoma State peeps that showed up that I see in the room tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Sandy Noda. Diego Campos. Vera Avogado. As a substitute for Don McCauley, Amy Egan, Vice President.
Here, Amy Egan, Vice President, Stanislaus.
Thank you, Amy. Terry Wilson. Chris Sherry. Kim Neal.
Here, Kim Neal, Chapter 311, CSULA, Chapter President. Happy to be here. Thanks, Neil.
You're welcome. Thank you. Eileen Tang.
Eileen Tang, Chapter 312, Northridge, President.
Thank you, Eileen. Tarita Varner. Saw her. Tarita? I saw her.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Tarita.
Tarita Varner, Chapter President, Chief Stewart, CSU Chancellor's Office.
Thank you, Tarita. Tonya Belcher.
Tonya Belcher, President, Chapter President, California State University, Dominguez Hills, Chapter 314.
Thank you, Tonya.
You're welcome.
Jennifer Moran.
Jennifer Moran, Chapter President, CSULB, Long Beach.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jeff Nadell.
Jeff Nadell, Chapter President, Chapter 316 from the real Cal Poly.
Thanks, Jeff. Jacqueline Otis. Robert Eastlaw. Hector Maciel. Anel Martin.
Anel Martin, Chapter President, San Bernardino.
Thank you, Anel. Vanessa Vincent.
Vanessa Vincent, Chapter President for San Marcos, and a shout out to all my San Marcos peeps. Woo!
Thank you, Vanessa. Sathian Sundaram.
Satyan Sundaram, Chapter President, Chapter 322, Monterey Bay.
Thank you, Sathian. Andrew Bowling.
Andrew Bowling, Chapter 323, CSU Maritime Academy, Chapter President, Chief Steward, Man at Large.
Thanks, Andrew. And Terry Mansour.
Terry Mansour, Chapter 324, Channel Islands, present.
I'm going to quickly go through these names just in case somebody wasn't able to unmute. Fortunato Garcia. Tony Spraggins.
I'm here.
Tony Spraggins. Tell us your name and title and campus.
Tony Spraggins, Northridge, seat Body Unit 7 chair.
Thank you, Tony. Pam Robertson. Don Marino. Marty Brenner.
Marty Brenner here, Unit 9 Vice Chair, California State University, Long Beach.
Thank you, Marty. Steve Tillinghast. Jessica Westbay. Sandy Noda. Diego Campos. Vera Abogado. Terry Wilson.
Stay right here, baby.
Chris Sherry. Jacqueline Otis. Robert Eastlaw. Hector Maciel. Okay, well, thank you, and thank you all for enduring.
Neil, Hector Macias is on the call. His name is on the participants. He might just not be able to talk.
Yes, I Hector also, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There he is.
So the purpose of this town hall, we're holding this, excuse me? Okay, is we're having this forum because Black Lives Matter. Our union put out an initial statement to say that we stood in solidarity with the protesters and we demanded justice for the police reform. Some of the union, of our union have said that the statement didn't quite go far enough. And I realize I don't know what I don't know. That motivated us to hold today's town hall and to hear from more voices. And that's why we've invited everyone. I feel like my job here is to listen to others and to be open to other life experiences that aren't the same as mine. I'm hoping those of us who have experienced it can gain a better understanding of what systematic racism actually looks like and feels like. The other thing that we want to come from this is that we have a draft resolution for the board to consider adopting, because we feel this is the moment calls for action. Concrete steps our union can take to advance racial equality. After tonight's meeting, the board will hold another session, like Jim said, to deliberate and vote on the language of the resolution. We sent out the resolution. I don't know how many people had a chance to read it, but I'm going to ask our communications chair to read the resolution. Isabel, can you introduce yourself?
Neil, could they share it on the screen? Possibly.
Do we have that available, Con?
Yes, as soon as Isabel comes on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isabel Bañuelos, and I will read the draft for which we seek your input.
Can everyone see the screen? Yes? Great.
Resolution to rededicate CSUEU's commitment to address racial inequalities through action. Whereas the California State University Employees Union is committed to advancing a just and equal society where the liberty to breathe is guaranteed to our African American brothers and sisters. Whereas George Floyd, Minnesota 2020, Breonna Taylor, Kentucky 2020, Ahmaud Arbery, Georgia 2020, Rayshard Brooks, Georgia 2020, Atatiana Jefferson, Texas 2019, Botham Jean, Texas 2018, Sandra Bland, Texas 2015, Eric Gardner, New York 2014, Trayvon Martin, Florida 2012, and countless others have been senselessly killed by police or racist vigilantes. Whereas centuries of systemic racism, which pervades our economic, social, and political institutions, have resulted in the present day reality where 96.1% of the 1.2 million households on the top 1% are white. Whereas Black men and women and people of color continue to be disproportionately targeted and killed by law enforcement, are discriminated against by landlords in housing, are provided low quality health care by medical professionals, are less likely to advance in their careers due to management bias, and are 5 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated because of an entrenched racist policing and judicial system. Whereas Black Lives Matter has become an international movement crossing cultural, ethnic, religious, and class lines, now, therefore, be it resolved that the CSUEU supports federal legislation to end institutionalized racism in the police force, ban chokeholds, ban no-knock warrants, require body cams, demilitarize the police, end racial profiling, create police misconduct database, commits to push the California State University to provide equitable wages for positions that traditionally draw working communities of color, will protect and safeguard frontline staff who remained on campus during the COVID-19 pandemic, with special attention to those duties involving cleaning and sanitizing, which expose employees to hazardous chemicals. Will create a diversity and inclusion committee within CSUEU to work with partners such as CSU students, faculty, and campus law enforcement to address and improve race relations on campuses.
Thank you, Isabel. Appreciate that. So next we're going to hear from Vanessa Vincent and Mike Geck from San Marcos. Vanessa is the chapter president and Mike is the chief steward at San Marcos. And they have a presentation for us. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining to our very first virtual open session. It's very exciting. And I wanted to take the moment to say that it was our chapter who brought forth concerns with the Take a Knee statewide messaging that went out. So we wanted to take an opportunity to express why. And a group of us in San Marcos have been working on a presentation regarding Black Lives Matter. And I think it's time for CSUEU to address matters like this. It's no longer okay to remain silent. And we need to touch on issues like that because we're all together in this, and we need to move forward and make a change regarding this. So I would like to introduce, so it's not only myself presenting, but it's also Mike Geck, who's our chief steward at San Marcos, and Ariel Stevenson, who's one of our Unit 9 members, and she also works at the Office of Inclusive Excellence at San Marcos. So she'll be joining us as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So if we can go ahead and do a share screen. It's not letting me.
What is it telling you, Vanessa?
It's saying host disabled, participant screen sharing.
They need to, whoever the host is needs to make you a co-host.
No, I disabled. Yeah. Hang on. It is set to be shareable according to my Zoom settings. Let me. You can share all participants. Can another computer try it, or?
If you make her a co-host, she can share.
What's that?
Yeah, co-host, I can go ahead and share.
Yeah, sometimes even though it says that you can share, you can't until you make them a co-host.
Let me find you, Vanessa, on this thing. Do more. I'm going to make you a co-host. Can you try now, Vanessa?
Got it. Thank you. Can everyone see?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can see it. Too.
Okay, so this is our response to CSUEU's Black Lives Matter draft resolution.
Yeah, so first of all, this isn't a call out, this is a call in where we're bringing people in to have this really tough conversation. And as Vanessa mentioned earlier, you know, I'll wait till that's muted. So this was, as Vanessa mentioned, this was the impetus for us to get this presentation together. It was the email that went out. We found it, very problematic.
I'm sorry, but Con, can you please mute whoever that is? Because I cannot hear.
All participants, mute all again. Okay, everyone is muted now. Everyone, please stay muted. Vanessa and Mike and the other member, would you please unmute yourself individually?
All right, thank you. So yeah, we want to say that this isn't a call out. This is a call in where we're bringing everybody together to talk through this tough issue. This is this isn't an easy issue for a lot of people, especially in a diverse union like we have. But the fact of the matter is, our leadership represents all of us collectively, and many of us felt that the take a knee statement was problematic. The statement started out and was supposed to be focused on Black lives, but it ended up mentioning that, basically not all cops are bad. To many of us, this registered as a microaggression and really took away from the centering of Black lives. And so, as I have been known to do, for those of you that have worked with me in the past, I tend not to stay quiet about things that I feel are important and that impact the working class and people of color. And for that reason, I spoke up and sent in an email with my feedback. And I did that because we need to hold each other accountable. We need to ensure that our union represents all of us and that all of our voices are heard. The national call is to center Black lives. Black Lives Matter, that's what it's all about. And we want to ensure that our union is going to be doing that moving forward. It's not about bringing in, our opinions about cops per se. It really is about Black lives mattering. And for me personally, I felt that this email and was kind of a continuum in CSUEU, where our top leadership, let's be honest here, has been white, cis, hetero males for decades. And we feel that, that term limits are probably a good idea. And we want term limits to ensure that we have new blood in leadership and that we can get different perspectives in leadership and different lived experiences. Going back to the not all cops are bad statement, again, that's not an experience that many members who live in neighborhoods that are over-policed by militarized police forces have. We need, just speaking from myself personally, I've lived in the hood my whole life. Just a few months ago, 4 blocks from my house, Toby Diller, say his name, was murdered by the police, literally 4 blocks from my house. So, not all cops are bad. That's not what I'm trying to hear. I'm trying to hear about how we can move forward and ensure that no more Toby Dillers are murdered in the future. And we need leadership that's in tune with that and that can speak to those lived experiences and the many different and diverse identities that are in our union. So I understand that this message was supposed to be focused and centered on Black lives, but it lost its focus and it ended up giving space to good cops. And to be honest, this is not the time to be appeasing. This is not the time to be looking at those people who say all lives matter and try to make them happy. This is a time to take a definitive stance for Black lives. And we also need to increase Black lives participation in our union. And we need to focus our efforts in this union on actively being anti-racist. We also understand that this message was not circulated widely for input from those with the lived experiences that can speak to this moment in time. We do understand that it did get passed around, but those of us with this lived experience that have been, myself, I've been in this movement for 30 years. We need to get more input, and we need to get more voices, and we need to get more eyes on these things before we send messages out like this. And we need to be developing these messages collectively, and we need to focus on Black employees as well.
So again, my name is Ariel Stevenson, the other member who's been a member for over 14 years for CSUEU. I just want to say, what do we do as we move forward? Coming from the spirit of shared work and collective responsibility, it is imperative that CSUEU is at the forefront of what is happening nationally. And so our goal is never to just check a box. Going back to what Mike talked about on centering Black folks, it's important that as CSUEU, that we make it a focus that we center people of color, that we prioritize Black membership. We have to remember in the world that Black lives are the most exploited, underpaid, denied raises and promotions historically. Black lives are the most murdered, brutalized, incarcerated, stopped, frisked, and for folks to say all lives matter or that there are good cops, it also just speaks to how least important that some people think that Black lives are. Because we are a collective unit, a bargaining unit where we need to act collectively, we have to step up on behalf of Black lives in our union, in our CSU system. We have to leverage our current environment. We understand right now through COVID and Corona that Black lives and undocumented lives and brown lives right now are having some compound experiences, and we must make sure as CSUEU that those members and as well as our members are engaged and involved while we provide the best access that we can to all of our members. And I also just want to say, when we talk about access, it's interesting that this is the first open forum. I think that we should have more open forums, not just for Black lives. We should think about what that looks like in the future. What does it mean to have access, right? For members of the BOD, for meetings, for bargaining sessions, for e-board meetings. Those things are important. The more people at the table, when inclusion is centered during this work, then everybody wins.
Actions we can take. So working together, messaging and ensuring that affected groups are consulted. One of the things we had mentioned in the call in, call out. Mobilizing and demonstrating alongside the movement for Black Lives Matters. Providing that material support, financial support, people resources for the movement for Black lives. Working in partnership and collaboration with the movement for Black lives to hold corporations accountable for the ways they maintain structural racism. Engaging our own membership and promoting the cross-racial solidarity so vital in this moment today. Transparency. Transparency and the openness in messaging and how we conduct our meetings. We need to have, like Ariel said, regular open BOD meetings, especially in our virtual world today, that can get more people involved, engaged, and expand the conversation out there. Also, most important that I didn't see out there, and I could be wrong, but creating a mission and vision statement for CSUEU that includes anti-racism. We need to also implement data-informed decision-making to better inform bargaining, promotions, IRPs, pay increases, etc., as well as including dashboards and assessments to ensure that the union is accountable of making this change. Most importantly, doing our caucuses. Caucuses are the solution to most of this.
And so as a part of the solution are the recommendations that we're offering. We really believe that caucuses provide a space and need to be created for CSUEU Those are something that we can move on rather quickly. Forming a Black caucus, an API caucus, or Chicana X or Latinx caucus, really focusing on a disability caucus. I know that sometimes folks who identify as having disability, accessibility issues, those people feel super left behind. An Indigenous Peoples Caucus, an LGBTQIA caucus. I think there may already be a women's caucus, but if we need to support, materialize, and reinvigorate that caucus, this is the time. We really want to be able to engage our members and have involvement. And sometimes at the higher level, it doesn't seem accessible for folks. So if we can get them involved at a caucus level, that will provide opportunities for members. And just holding them or helping them or having them have access to the work and participation in it. And most importantly, creating the space. I know a lot of your systems create faculty staff associations, employee programs, things that will help and support those particular employees to really feel validated. And so we see this as a great solution going forward on how we can be different at CSUEU.
Okay, so I was just told we got 10 more minutes, so I'm going on to our next. Can we see it? Can you all see it?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So after reading the resolution that was sent to all for statewide, Chapter 321 has made resolution recommendations. Ariel?
Yes, and in those recommendations, we really wanted to expand upon them, offer our feedback. These are things and areas that we really want to talk about. In the recommendations that were sent forth, I don't remember seeing anything about being intentionally anti-racist. And so even just speaking the names with the first one that we kind of rewrote, we asked that whereas the California State University Employee Union, as a result of the persistent death of innocent Black citizens in the United States at the hands of police officers, CSUEU should always act in the ways that support, affirm, and advocate for Black lives and stand in solidarity with the movement for Black lives so that the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Tatiana Jefferson, Botham Jean, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Philando Castro, and so on and so forth, as there are countless others who have lost their lives senselessly and been killed by police or racist vigilantes.
Whereas CSUEU is committed to advancing a just and equal society where the liberty to breathe is guaranteed to our Black brothers and sisters.
Whereas it has become clear that CSUEU can no longer sit quietly amid countless acts of violence, particularly against Black men and boys, we must ensure that the influence that CSUEU carries ensures that Black Lives Matter are supported by federal, state, local elected officials, and that we will mobilize and demonstrate alongside the movement for Black Lives Matter. We will stand in solidarity with the movement for Black Lives Matter that is demanding justice and driving accountability and change.
Can you go up a little bit for me? A little bit more. I can't see it. Vanessa, read it. I can't see it.
There?
We're on number 4, Vanessa.
I have 4 on my screen. No?
Go up a little bit more. Vanessa, I think you should just read it for the time.
I'll go for it. Whereas CSUEU denounces anti-Blackness and is becoming an anti-racist organization, we must commit ourselves to change and no longer remain impartial. hold the CSU and corporations accountable in their efforts to, David Bala Hawkins, can you mute yourself, please? Hold the CSU and corporations accountable in their efforts to make, David Bala Hawkins, can you mute yourself, please? Hold the CSU and corporations accountable in their efforts to eliminate structural racism, provide material support, that means people power, financial and other resources to the movement for Black Lives Matter, help to build and deepen the investment of the labor movement and other movement partners to stand in solidarity with the movement for Black Lives Matter, hold public safety unions accountable, ensuring that racial justice is their highest priority, and engage our own membership and promote cross-racial solidarity.
Whereas CSUEU will form the following caucuses immediately. A, Black Caucus. B, Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. C, Chicano X, Latino X caucuses. D, Disability Caucus. E, Indigenous Peoples Caucus. F, LGBTQIA+ caucus. G, Women's Caucus. These caucuses will help with member engagement, involvement, and communication, giving them an opportunity to get involved beyond holding office and committee work. They will create a space for members to engage with the issues that matter to them, while contributing to the anti-racist components of our mission and vision statement.
Whereas CSUEU will create a social justice, equity, and inclusion committee whose charge will be developed by the caucuses mentioned in number 6.
Whereas the murders of Black lives at the hands of state-sanctioned violence against our communities and are indicative of the growing social economic division that threatens the current and future well-being of people of color.
Whereas historically, when Black people have fought for a more democratic and fair society, the lives of all people have improved. And conversely, each time barriers to Black people's upliftment have been erected, our whole society has suffered.
Whereas the CSUEU supports the Justice and Policing Act of 2020 legislation promoted by the Congressional Black Caucus and introduced by Democratic leaders in the House and Senate that would ban chokeholds, guaranteed immunity, and establish a national database to track police misconduct and prohibit certain no-knock warrants and other steps to address police brutality.
Therefore, be it resolved that CSUEU will stand in solidarity with the movement for Black Lives Matter through our collective action and our collective bargaining.
Be it further resolved that CSUEU will create a mission and vision statement that is inclusive of anti-racism while focusing on fairness, justice, and dignity, and that it must encompass everyone regardless of race, religion, gender, language, national origin, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Be it further resolved that CSUEU as a collective of working people who have used our collective voices to help better the lives of poor and working people in our communities by increasing pay, improving working conditions, and promoting policies that confront inequality, that improve the pillars of opportunity, such as public education, healthcare, and housing, and that improve the quality of life in our communities. That in addition, we will leverage data-informed decision-making to better inform bargaining, promotion, IRP, pay increases, etc., as well as dashboards and assessments to ensure our union is accountable and making change.
Be it further resolved that CSUEU commits to push the CSU to provide equitable wages for positions that traditionally draw workers from communities of color.
Be it further resolved that the CSUEU will protect and safeguard frontline staff who remain on campus during the COVID-19 pandemic, with special attention to those duties involving cleaning and sanitizing, which expose employees to hazardous materials and put them at higher risk of contracting COVID-19. Please take into consideration that many components of this resolution has been adapted language from AFT SEIU International.
And let us not forget, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our change.
We have nothing to lose but our change.
That's right.
Thank you. And also, we would like other input too, as well, from our rest of our brothers and sisters in the union. You know, we want to go ahead and send this resolution around so there can be more input, any changes, any edits, any concerns. We want everyone involved.
Because we believe in shared work and collective responsibility.
And that our collective voices together will ring out in a chorus that we can all be treated as equal, and we can all reap in the benefits that our union fights for.
Thank you for the floor.
And we also have a list of some resources on our PowerPoint that we'll be sharing. Pretty comprehensive list there. So if you want to get more informed and you want to get more involved in Black Lives Matter and being actively anti-racist or calling for police reforms, there's some good resources that we have in this presentation to share with you.
Especially if you do not understand, if this is new to you, and because we are in the spirit of education through the CSU system, we recommend strongly that you take the time to do your individual research so that we can move forward collectively.
Neil, you need to unmute, please.
Hello?
Thank you, Vanessa and Mike, for your presentation. Well done. You put some time in on that. I definitely can tell.
And Ariel Stevenson, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Ariel.
Ariel was instrumental. We're so grateful that she took the time out to help us with this.
So you're going to send that around, correct? Okay, thanks. Now we're going to open up the forum and hear from other members and get their feedback on the proposed resolution. If you'd like to share your thoughts, this is where what Jim was saying to the audience at the beginning, you're going to go to the participants, and if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's participants. At this moment, I show there's 116 participants. If you click on that, then you'll see on the right-hand side all the names, not all of them, as big as the screen can hold. And then down in the bottom right-hand corner, it should say raise your hand. And this is where if you want to make a comment, you have 2 minutes to make a comment. Khan, our director for communications, will call on you. The names, whoever does it, it comes up automatically in order of who clicked the button first. And then she will unmute you, and you have, she'll start a timer. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, she'll just mention you're at the end of your 2 minutes. And when you get on, would you please state your name and the campus you're from? All right. So, Khan, do we have anybody on the list who want to speak?
Yes, we have a couple, Neil. Give me a second here. I see Eric Ban, B-A-N-H. If you could, I just unmuted you. Can you see if you can speak?
Hi, hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi. Hey, so my name's Eric Bonham from the Sacramento campus. I just want to thank Ariel Stevenson and the San Marcos campus. I think that was the most beautiful thing that I've seen in a while, especially with this movement. I'm not sure if you've been following the news in Sacramento, but I've been on the ground in Sacramento, following along with my Black brothers and sisters, allowing them to grieve, and also seeing a beautiful show of community in Sacramento, and the love of support that's out there. I also was feeling the same way that y'all felt once I saw the first message. We didn't need to show support for good cops that were raised, that voluntarily decided to participate in a racist system. I think we all have to remember that higher education was also built on a racist system, right? What I would like to see in a resolution added is the biggest thing that everybody else is fighting for on the ground for Black Lives Matter is we need to add something in there that says that we need to defund the police. We need I don't know how much money the CSU puts into hires additional security for events, but we don't need to hire any police departments for security for events. I'm not sure. I'm still confused on if university police is part of the city police. So that's what I'm also confused on. But I would like to see part of that resolution, something that says that we defund the police and no more extra money goes to the police, and that gets reallocated to programs for communities of color.
Thank you, Eric. That was perfectly under 2 minutes. I have Mary Granger. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello. Mary Granger. I'm from Chapter 314. I am the Chief Steward and also the Bargaining Unit 9 representative. I want to thank Vanessa and Jim. I forgot the other young lady's name. It was beautiful. It's definitely a big step up from what I saw the first one, and I appreciate you touched many things. Also, I would like to see in that resolution, because within the CSU system and everything, where it comes to African American people, we don't have the opportunity to get promotions and raises, and we don't have the opportunity to get RFPs, and we work just as hard, if not harder. We always got to work 100 times harder than predominant whites and other races to try to even move up a little bit. So I would like to see that part of the resolution and everything, that CSUEU also fight for us on that. Also, I'd like to see in this resolution, I don't know how you want to put in everything, for Dominguez Hills, we always has been predominant historically African-American leaderships on the campus, and we never hardly get support from CSUEU and everything, probably because we are predominant African-American staff that's on the leaderships, on the chapter leaderships and everything. And I'm quite sure that the other campuses that may have that may feel the same way. And I'm tired of them saying that because we speak, probably, I want to say we are confident in when we speak, we have authority, that we are angry and we are mad. No, we're not angry and we are not mad and everything. We are tired of not CSUEU not supporting, in particular CSU Dominguez Hills. So I would like to see resolutions in there as well, talking about how within this system and everything, where there's racism stop here at CSUEU. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I am seeing, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, is it Doris Ingram from CSUEB?
Yes. Yes, it's Doris. Thank you. That was correct pronunciation. One, I just want to give my gratitude to everyone that worked so diligently on this and addressing it. There's something I would like to see included in the resolution. So there is a requirement now, like for ethnic studies for students, but there's nothing requiring employees, or, we're not doing faculty, but employees to understand the history of this country, right? And so is there some way that we can require that as part of a training for all staff, CSUEU staff, just to really address it? So we're doing some education, but a lot of people just don't have the education. And if we are diverse as we are, there's no reason that people should not be educated about the history and what's happening with Indigenous peoples, with Black people, with Black lives, and that, that there's some sort of requirement that people have to learn, which could be part of our diversity training that you have to learn as an employee here about the history of this country. So it stops being such a misaligned message. And thank you guys again.
Next, I have Kim Neal.
You know, I was just inspired by what Doris said. I got into a conversation with the chair of my department last year or the year before about why staff on our campus isn't given unconscious bias training. And it turns out the faculty are. And they usually are when they are about to go on a hiring committee. But I think it's really important for all staff to understand what unconscious bias is and how they can overcome it for themselves. And you know, I don't want to take up 2 minutes, but I would just like to echo what Doris was saying. Thank you.
Next is Katie Murphy.
Hi, I'm Katie Murphy. I'm the Unit 9 representative for San Francisco State. I also wanted to echo what Doris is saying. In addition to some kind of requirement, I'd really appreciate there be actual professional development opportunities. Right now, I've just been seeing so many things brought up for faculty and how to respond, but really nothing for staff on my campus. In addition to that, I think for any type of statement that we're making, I think because Black trans lives matter, we need to be using language that doesn't exclude people based on not fitting into a gender binary. So maybe saying siblings instead of brothers and sisters. I think there are creative ways to do this. And also, as Eric had said, defunding the police, a reallocation of not just the CSU's budget, moving away from sort of a security institution into an actual social justice institution, but for the state and the country more broadly. And also, just this is me minorly nitpicking on the golden edifice that Ariel, Vanessa, and Mike kind of forged, was if we could add disability to the list of kind of towards the end, the identities that have kind of been discriminated against, just because there's going to be a disability caucus, which is wonderful. So that is my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Constance Bryan is next.
Hi, Constance Bryan from San Francisco State. It's good to see Katie Murphy. I didn't know that you existed, and so that's nice. Thank you, Doris, on what you said. Thank you to all of the warriors who put together the document. I know on our campus, I didn't even realize that we have unconscious bias, or that we do not have unconscious bias training for hiring committee. I'm going to be on a hiring committee for a pretty pivotal position, and this, I think, speaks to the fact that all the campuses don't have any kind of standardization in terms of training or professional development. So I think that needs to be looked into, because that's really problematic. So that's pretty much what I have to say. But again, I thank you, Doris. I think that education and training is sorely lacking, definitely on San Francisco State's campus. It's quite antithetical to what we're supposed to stand for in terms of being an educational institution, and also being a social justice institution, because we don't even have a bullying EO. The EO's executive orders are really lacking as well. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Peter Fortuna, you're next.
Hi, so I really appreciate the presentation and the information that was given. One thing that I think we as a union should always consider is the generational differences that we have. We have multiple generations living at the same time, working at the same time, with different traditions, expectations, and different definitions of words and usage of those words. And so I think that should be brought in to the conversation. I agree that training is necessary. I think it should be cultural and then ethical training, leadership training, so that we develop a system like I make the analogy of a sports game. We agree on the rules of the game, and it doesn't really matter about your politics, about all the other intersectionalities that we have. We can focus on the game plan that we have and we agree on. And then I think defunding is too strong a word, but I like the idea of reallocating. And then the idea of conflict resolution. I understand the need to express emotion and feelings, and there's a time for that too. But I prefer to think of this as a whole abuse of power, so that we build bridges to other groups as well. Like other people brought up other groups that were not mentioned. So I would like to reframe it as abuse of power and hold the power structures accountable, and not just one symptom, the police. To me, it's bigger than that. And that's what we should address as a union. And then our goal should be achievable. Because if we make goals that are not achievable in a small time frame, I think that weakens our perception of power and influence. Thank you.
Someone asked me to unmute. I don't know if you called my name. Is it my turn to speak? This is Adrienne.
Go ahead, Adrienne.
Okay, so this is Adrienne Durso. And first of all, thank you to our Cal State San Marcos colleagues for being true leaders. I'm so proud and honored and humbled to know all of you that presented today. And it's great to see you and hear your voices. I just believe really that we should strive for more diverse representation in our top leadership statewide. It should be a goal of all of ours to push people of different backgrounds, underrepresented communities, to run for offices and to hold the higher seats. And I also believe that every officer should take training in unconscious bias training, to be able to understand sensitivity, leadership, cultural, and microaggression, to take trainings in those areas so that they can be more sensitive to this kind of stuff. We need to be progressive. The time is now, and we need to move forward with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adrienne. I have Tony without a last name, but I think that's Mr. Tony from LA. LA.
This is Tony, Bargaining Unit 7 Chair from Northridge. I just want to speak on the resolution when we talk about certain aspects within the CSU system in terms of raises and IRPs and things like that, and bargaining caucuses and things like that. We have to understand one thing moving forward is that collectively, everybody has to make themselves a committee of one in collecting information and passing that information along to the people that can do something about it. Because most of our employees, and as we know, tend to feel bullied at the campus, don't want to say nothing because they think their job is in jeopardy. They have all of these issues on that line. And one of the things we do when we don't get our way, we feel, but then we throw it into, then we throw the race card in there, and we try to use that as a background for where we're moving. That information is important, whether you're black, brown, white, whatever the case may be. We have 16,000 members that's being treated in a certain way when it comes to collective talking to the bargaining team. When we move forward with information against the CSU, we need that information. So whatever that information is, we need to have it so that it makes our argument stronger, right? Be it, I mean, we know there's racism going on, but if somebody feels bullied and don't want to speak on it, then we can't do that. And that person just gets mad and want to hold people accountable for something that they don't know is going on. As a group, as an individual, you have to make yourself a committee of one. Pass that info. If you don't want to talk about it, give that information to someone who will talk about it. That way, those people at the top, your leaders, will go with a better argument to the CSU to make sure the things that you're looking to do and get done are put on the table. We always want to put the CSU in a position to say, that they knew. Because they always say, we didn't know that. Nobody brought that to our attention. That happens a lot. But it's up to us as a union with 16,000 members to bring that to the table, to our leadership, so that we will have that argument when we go to the top. Because again, we are talking about a union to do a thing. And collectively as a union, we need that information, all the information, right? So across the board, it means the same thing. So we Black Lives Matter, but when we talk about giving people raises, it has to be across the board kind of thing. Everybody has to be equal in that stance. The union can't fight for a particular. That's like when Barack Obama became president, Black folks thought that he could help them out. He had to govern a country, not a people. So we have to make sure we keep our eye on the prize to make sure that we're helping all 16,000 of our members under the same umbrella as we do everything else. That way we'll make sure that we're covering all our bases.
Thanks, Mr. Tony. Next up is Lee Man Broussard Ware.
Thank you, everyone. I want to echo everyone's thanks for this great opportunity. I agree with Peter. I think we should create a timetable for these things that we're requesting. As long as there's a timetable, then our administrators and our board of trustees will have a time frame, and they can't say it is an ongoing issue. I've been at Dominguez for 20 years, and everything seems to be an ongoing issue with an ing. I need to hear some present tenses and some past tenses in their speeches and their open forums. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
And we do not have any new speakers. We do have Mary Granger asking to address the forum again. Mary.
I'm so sorry.
Excuse me.
I don't, Mary Granger, this is me. I don't want this to be a controversial speech right here because I think it's going in a good thing and everything, but I totally disagree with Tony because I am a representative. I've been representing people since 1990 or probably a little bit before, and I represent everybody. I'm not, it's because when I took the oath to represent everybody, and to say that and everything, to say that people are afraid to speak up and everything. I know at my campus they are not afraid to speak up and everything. When employees are doing, you can have a white person working doing the same thing as an African American doing or any other race is doing and everything. I know for a fact on my campus, and yet they're going to promote the white person. They're going to put that person over you. And they're gonna and don't give us the opportunity. We got to train them and everything, and we fight and we do the grievances. We go through the process and everything, and it drops at level 3. So it's not about that. Like I've said and everything like this, and everybody know that on this panel, that's on the participants, that it is a difference and everything. And they put a few selected people in there to try to shut us up. But we're not asking for you to give us something because Black Lives Matter. We're not asking you to give us something because of we're Black and everything. We're not asking to give it. We're asking to treat us equal because we are human. We're working. We're doing the same thing. We want the same promotion. We get killed in our valuations and stuff. We get killed in our demotions and stuff. We get killed in terminations and stuff and discrimination. We get killed in wrongfully these 1096, executive order 1096 and stuff. We get killed in this workplace violence and stuff like this. That's what we get killed at.
My hand was up. I just want to acknowledge that.
I'm sorry, I don't see you. Could you say your name and where you're from?
My name is Flora Williams. I'm from Sonoma State University, and I was invited by Tina. It was awesome. Thank you guys so much for having this forum. I am really happy and grateful to be here, and I would like to acknowledge the excellent presentation that you guys put together, and I totally hear what everyone is saying. I don't think that the presentation came from an area of being over emotive. The question that's on the table today is how do we resolve the issue of police brutality? And basically, as a union, which I'm very happy to be a part of course, we will work across the board to make sure everyone, and I'm not a representative, but I am a participant, that everyone receive equitable treatment and fair advancement. I resonated with the 4E description that you guys talked about in your presentation. And what I would like to achieve is to work with the union, through the union, across unions, to ensure that we get rid of, as you guys said, the immunity that is afforded to police officers. I do agree that there is something in languaging that we need to be mindful of. For example, defunding could evoke something in people, but reallocation of funds are perfectly fine. I believe there is a political approach to what we can do. In other words, vote out the sheriff or the district attorney or whomever is standing in the way of progress. If we all come together and agree to do that, which I'm sure we've done for years, then we could make some headways there. But I would really like to dig into the police department and their hiring practices. For example, to do background checks and weed out the white supremacists. Let's face it, there are people who join the police department simply for the benefit of killing people of color. Now, we have had African American people that have been, their deaths have been shown on television like snuff films. There are other people dying in this country too, but that is something that runs real to real after it happens for weeks, as if it's entertainment, and it's sickening. We have to deal with the police unions that are protecting these people. Now, I'm not for totally throwing the unions out, but they have to come to grips with protecting policemen who have a history of this unacceptable behavior. And there has to be some triggers in place to where their record becomes available to the public and that they are held accountable for their actions. So I agree with basically everything everyone has said. I believe Black Lives Matter, and I know that as an African American woman. My son went to the store just the other day, and there was a woman who called in the car and told the manager she refused to get out because she saw an African American man putting on a mask and gloves to rob the place.
Flora, Flora, I'm sorry, your audio is cutting in and out, and your 2 minutes is also up.
Okay, sorry. So
would you like to
point,
wrap up? Would you like to wrap up?
I would like to wrap up. The point is, racism does exist, and we do need the conscientious or implicit or explicit bias training, and we also need to work together and realize we are all a part of the human race, and this is a social construct that we can all grow together. I do believe there's more human compassion and love in human beings than there are all of this division. And we have to keep our eye on that. And that's all I'm saying. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I ramble, sorry.
Thank you, thank you. Next up, we have Mike.
Yeah, I just want to follow up. It's great feedback. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate that. You know, when we did this presentation, I had no idea what kind of response we were going to get. I've seen a lot of wacky things on the board of directors in my time when I was VP for organizing. And I'm so glad to hear all the support, not just from the members, but also from board members as well. I just want to stress how important it is that whatever the final resolution ends up being, and I hope you really take into serious consideration the work that we put into the suggestions and the recommendations that we put forward. But whatever it ends up being, it really does need to be explicitly anti-racist. We really do need to call that out and make that part of our DNA in this union. In addition, you know, I've seen this union avoid issues of race like the plague. And I'm so glad that we're finally dealing with it now. And one of the reasons that I'm really happy about that is, you know, as we're seeing out in the streets right now, the people that are out there making change, those are the people that we will be speaking to with an anti-racist resolution. Those individuals are the individuals that are going to be out there when the time comes to organize, when the time comes to hit the streets and protest and stand up, take a stand, you know, in our bargaining efforts. It's those individuals that we're going to be speaking to with a powerful resolution that will come out in force. And so I feel like, you know, this isn't just about making a statement. It's about getting people involved that are already part of movements, getting people involved that are already putting in work out there in the streets and fighting for social justice. So, you know, I just want to caution the board to make sure that we don't end up watering this down, and that we don't end up taking an appeasement stance and trying to please everybody. We're going to piss some people off, and that's okay. But I think what we really need to do is focus our efforts and our energy on those individuals that have put in that work and would be willing to put in that work out in the streets for this union, you know, to give them an opportunity to speak directly to them, to touch them in their hearts, and to inspire them to action and to get more involved in their union. I know that when I was early on as a member, I didn't really feel inspired to get involved with the union. I was out there in the streets. You know, I've been organizing in social justice and before it was even social justice, and fighting against injustice for 30 years. And so when I first, you know, became a member, it just I didn't hear or see any of that. Had I joined and when I first got hired and had I seen those kinds of messages, I would have been, you know, initially inspired to get more involved and to get more active in my union. So just make sure it doesn't get watered down, and really speak to the people that are actually going to be out there putting in work. Thank you.
Julie, I have you next. Is it Julie Zafiratos?
Yes, thank you, Julie Zafiratos. And I also wanted to just thank Ariel and Vanessa and Mike. I thought it was a beautiful presentation. I really liked the anti-racist resolution being more clear and direct, and I support that. And I just wanted to add in another ask, as Doris mentioned, that I really feel that the training that she talked about, and not just the, you know, I do think we should all have unconscious bias training, you know, just every faculty and staff member. And I do think we should all have microaggression training, faculty, staff, students, everybody. But I kind of feel like, and maybe I was misinterpreting, but I felt like Doris was talking about a little bit more, like a little bit of history, a little bit of sort of foundational knowledge. Like when we take that training about, you know, sexual assault on campus or drinking, or, you know, there could be something that just sort of lays out some basic historical facts, you know, facts and figures, and just so everybody kind of has a real basic platform of understanding, you know, what the history of the police department has been, what the problematics are of, you know, the Constitution and the Civil War and Reconstruction. And, you know, we've had a history, and maybe if we had kind of a basic training that addresses that, in addition to our unconscious bias and our microaggression. Thank you.
Okay, I see Ariel, but I also have a newer name, so I'm going to go on the newer name and I'll come back to you, Ariel. I have Donald Duval. Would you please state your campus also?
Yes, hi, my name is Donald Duval, and I am from Sonoma State University. And I think in a training for all staff, managers, and everybody on campus would be ideal, because in my position, I'm the only person of color, the only Black person in the whole building in my area. And I've went to them numerous times. I've been there 13 years. And in 13 years, I've had to go to them so many times about things they say to me based on cultural things like being called boy, or then they want to say, oh, is this a kumbaya moment? Those things hurt me because they don't know where those things come from. That's a cultural thing. So you're putting me down. You're saying I'm stupid in a roundabout way, and that's not fair to me. And then when we go to HR dismisses it, and they want to say, well, maybe you're just looking at it the wrong way. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. No, they meant it that way. And if they didn't mean it that way, then that's why we need to have training so that they can understand that those things aren't okay to say. Systemic racism isn't just about the police. It's entrenched in every aspect of American society. We can't just, I mean, we do have to focus on that, but it's not just the police. It's within our universities, and we need to get some training so people can understand when they say things to you. Saying boy to you might not be that big of a deal, but if you say boy to an African-American man, it is a big deal. And I've been called boy a lot. And not saying that these guys meant it, maybe some of them did, but it still hurts because for me, it's a cultural thing. So some cultural training for people to understand different ethnicities, understanding of different cultures so that we can understand everything and about everyone. And, you know, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling now, but, you know, I think the training would be a really good idea. And for managers to listen to us, and for managers to take that training too, because managers don't listen to us. They dismiss us. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Rochelle Smart.
Hello. I'm trying to get my screen here. So, hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Vanessa, to Mike, and to Ariel for that presentation. And as a former labor organizer myself, I am compelled to be a part of this conversation. I am very appreciative that we're having this space in this town hall. But I have to be honest. I'm frustrated that for the past 45 to 30 minutes, we've talked about trainings. And you guys can talk about training all you want to. I want our allies and our partners in this fight with us to step up with us. I want you to speak up for us. I want you to affirm our roles and our suggestions and our experiences. I had a white colleague that in meetings, I was the associate director, he was the director, he would literally shift his body so that when white people were talking to him, they had to look at me, that I was the point in focal context in that conversation. And that's what I want people to do. Trainings are gonna be super useful in the future, but tomorrow when you wake up and you join that Zoom meeting or that team meeting, I want you to affirm the voices of the unheard. I want you to look at your Black brothers and sisters and affirm them, because we're standing in this space, angry, frustrated, depleted, tired, and yet here we are, another day, pulling ourselves up here and being looked over, being underpaid, being unseen, underemployed, of all these things, and yet we focus on the training. Trainings will be very useful, but I want you to nominate us as champions, as staff champions, and as like employees of the month, so that it ripples across all 23 CSUs, so they know that Black Lives Matter amongst the staff ranks. And then my firm belief is that if they begin to highlight and uplift the Black lives and our lives mattering across all levels, then it's gonna trickle down to the other minorities and other caucuses that we're focusing on. But right now, today, I still think about Philandro Castile dying in a car with a young girl, filmed on Facebook Live, and yet that's acceptable. Rayshard Brooks was just killed a few weeks ago, and yet we're thinking about a training. I encourage everybody to think about what can you do tomorrow to uplift Black voices in your community, because it's important that we get trainings in the future, but I need you tomorrow when I wake up and I'm the one person amongst a sea of white faces and everyone's asking me, how are you doing? And it's a veiled how you're doing. And I don't want to have to say I'm fine. I'm tired. I'm sick and I'm tired. But yet I show up every day at 8 o'clock for a Zoom meeting, smiling, earrings, hair done, ready to rock the world, because that's what's expected of me as a Black woman. So I ask you as allies, as organizers in this movement, show up for me in ways that you haven't done so in the beginning. And I just challenge you to affirm me, to pick up my voice in a meeting and just make me known in spaces that are not typically known. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ariel, you're up.
I thank you, Rochelle, for sharing, all the folks who shared. Mary Granger, you share immediately after I wanted to share. Peter, I definitely heard you around this is bigger than the police and this is a systemic problem and we need to focus on that. But I also want to push back on the comment around don't get caught up in emotion, and I don't want to take it out of context because I think I understand what you said, but it is deeply emotional to see someone death and murder in a body, like it's for real and serious. I also want us to redirect to the point that we made around, I think it was, yes, it was, sorry, I got 2 minutes, I'm trying. Number 8, because I think people miss this point. Historically, when Black people have fought for a more democratic and fair society, the lives of all people have improved. And conversely, each time barriers to Black people's upliftment have been erected, our whole society has suffered. You can always focus on Black lives. You can always center Black lives. It is important because when you center Black lives, everybody is included. There is data that shows that we model, when we have somebody that looks like us, that person learns better. The data shows in the teaching world, when a Black person is teaching at a classroom, all students learn better. So we can always focus on Blackness because everybody wins. Don't ever be scared to not focus on Blackness. Don't be derailed by all lives, because it's another way to say all lives, and I'm very serious because I get very moved when people, well, we can't just not no, we focus on Black lives. When Neil sent the original message, it was about Black lives. The resolutions arise because of about Black lives. So we need to focus on Black lives, and I take that seriously, and I hope you do as well.
Sadie Petit is next.
Oh, I almost just lost track of what I was going to say. Ariel, that was beautiful. Rochelle, thank you for saying what you said. I've kind of been here sitting on my hands because I feel very passionately that it's my responsibility to learn how to be an ally to BIPOC folks and support them in meetings and in work environments. I don't know how, I didn't want to say that because here I am, a part of the white supremacy. It's not my, I feel like it's not my job to say, well, we should all be supporting. Anyway, I wanted to say that I support the idea of training. I really hope we can figure out how to have it be in a Zoom context like this, because I know that I've gotten diversity training on my campus and it was me in a cubicle watching a really corny animated video that you just had to click through, and it's not impactful. That's not connecting with people at all. And the last thing I wanted to say is I really hope that that we can get that document that the amazing trio prepared up somewhere so that not only the people who have come here, but everyone in the union can have a chance to read it and reflect on it and make comments. Thanks.
May I suggest White Humility by Robert DeAngelo? That would be a really great book, Sadie, for you to explore.
I have Peter and then Mike, but wait, Peter, I'm sorry. I have a new hand up that I'd like to call on since she hasn't spoken. This is Tonya Belcher.
Hi, thanks, Con. I want to say this as a board of director, is that I would like to, as part of the resolution, I would like for us to, for the CSUEU to make a commitment to looking within, in terms of looking at our board of directors, looking at our executive directors, our staff, and making a commitment that the leadership gets trained, one, regarding the history of Black lives and all the other things that we talked about in terms of training. And also, I would like to see an affirmation from our executive officers, from our staff, our LLRs, the people that are working for us and with us in terms of representation. I'd like to see a affirmation, confirmation, and commitment from them in uplifting our Black representatives. And I want to echo with what Mary said earlier about not really having that support on our campuses, and especially at Dominguez Hills. I want to see that commitment and affirmation of us, the people that are out there in the trenches doing this work for, not for Black people, for all, you know, colors and races, but we know what is going on. And sometimes I don't feel like we're being listened to. A lot of times sitting on the board as a board member, I don't feel like I'm listened to. I don't feel like I'm taken serious with the things that I'm saying as a Black woman. And so I want to see these affirmations, these resolutions. I want to see that inwardly first, because how can we talk about doing things on the outside and having these resolutions if we're not doing that on the inside first? So that's what I want to see. And that's what I'd like to see in the resolution too. Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah, thanks guys for sharing your thoughts and feelings and allowing me to share my thoughts and feelings. It actually feels pretty safe to express ourselves here. One thing that I want to, again, restate, I would love to see milestones and timelines and more of like an uplifting message, so that we get buy-in. Because if we don't get buy-in from other groups and other people and other, you know, intersectionality stuff, we limit our influence. And again, we limit our chances to win, and we close the umbrella. And I think if we go after the power structures and actually have training and accountability to the people in power, we can actually then create real change. Because again, like somebody was saying, that if you have a teacher, that looks like us, we do better. If we have people in power that look like us and understand us, we do better. But the only way we get that is if we get buy-in. And then the only way they'll want to learn about us is if we inspire them to learn about us. If we tell them they have to learn, we're going to get pushback. And so I would like to see more of a conflict resolution, bridge building, uplifting statement where we affirm people, we hold people accountable, and then we look for change in a reasonable time frame with reasonable goals. Because I feel like it's really broad, and that broadness will cause unfocus. Thank you.
Okay, looks like I have Eric Bond back, and then after that, Mike Geck. Eric?
Hello?
Can hear
Yes. Yeah, I just want to reaffirm what Mike said earlier, that we aren't going to appeal to everybody with this statement. This statement needs to be Black Lives Matter, and what Black Lives Matter activists and people on the ground are saying, that is, we need to defund the police, and we need to make Black Lives Matter the most important aspect in it. We don't need to reallocate funds. We don't need to say anything about reallocating funds or anything like that. We don't need to ask for buy-in or anything like that. If these people aren't gonna buy in, then we go around them, right? We always go around them. We need that whatever money they're protecting to get away out of their budget into the budget for Black students and staff. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Geck?
Yeah, I appreciate what Peter's saying, and I know he's coming from a good place, but being reasonable hasn't brought about the changes that we're seeing today. Being bold, demanding speaking your truth and being and centering, voices that are willing to take a stand. That's why we're seeing chokeholds banned. That's why we're seeing defunding the police becoming, 2-3 weeks ago, when you said, if you would have said defund the police, people would have looked at you like you're crazy. Now, some people still do that, but there are a lot more people that are asking questions and getting more informed and figuring out, hey, that's actually not a bad idea. And so if we just want to be reasonable and say, well, let's just train the police better, that's a reasonable approach. That's not a bold approach. We need to be bold. And if we want to make the big changes that we want to make, if we want to make these small little incremental changes that really don't have big impacts or have deep meaning for those most affected, then yeah, by all means be reasonable. But if we want to actually make systemic change and we want to bring about the changes that we've been talking about here, we have to be bold. We have to go out there and speak our truth the way that it's that we experience it. I also want to state, how critical caucuses are going to be for the internal work that we need to do. We need people that are dedicated and have lived experience in these particular issues to be able to inform committees, to be able to inform the board, to be able to bounce these kinds of messages that we saw that kicked off this whole presentation. Caucuses are the way to do that. And we need a social justice committee that kind of encompasses all of that. But that social justice committee needs to be informed by the caucuses. It needs to be accountable to the caucuses. And of course, all committees and caucuses need to be accountable to the board. But I really, really want to stress, especially to the board members that have a vote on this, please, we need these caucuses. We need a social justice committee. It's the way that we're actually going to turn these words into action. Without that, I've seen so many things go into this black hole of the board of directors where things get debated to the point where you're beating a dead horse into oblivion and there's nothing left. And everybody's just pissed off and frustrated and aggravated and the issue kind of goes by the wayside. So we do need the committees and we do need the caucuses in order to do that. And I also just want to make one quick suggestion for my white siblings out there. There's an organization called Showing Up for Racial Justice, SURGE. If you want to get more involved in this work and you really want to be an ally, I highly recommend that you look into Showing Up for Racial Justice. I work with this organization here locally in San Diego on a regular basis. Awesome people. They really know what they're talking about. And it's a place where white folks can get together and talk about these kinds of issues amongst each other and get schooled up by each other. So please, if you're a white sibling out there, please look into SURGE, Showing Up for Racial Justice. Thank you.
Jim.
I was going to make a simple comment, but then Tonya kind of asked for some feedback, I think, from the leadership. So I wanted to take a second to lay out just how I see it personally. I haven't talked about this with Neil or anybody else, so it's just my own opinion. The way I see our country is that we have the African American and Native American people that are the most oppressed in the country. And if we work on those issues, I think Ariel said it well, other people get more free. So I've seen that happen. And so that's sort of my commitment on a movement level is the things that are oppressing the African American and Native American people, they're not that easy to fix individually. If I walk into Bank of America and say, hey, give my friend a loan, he's a good guy, and he's a black guy, they're going to say, well, that's not how things work, buddy. You need to get out of here. So there's certain things you cannot change as an individual. You have to have a movement. You have to have pressure. And so I kind of see that as one level. Then there's your individual practices. Those are where the trainings come in, the unconscious bias, how do you work better with people, how do you listen? Then in between, there's our organizations. What's the union doing? How does the union advance the movement? Take a position. So I kind of see things on 3 levels, and I'll commit to, work as I can here at CSUEU to do better on how we, put together organizational support for that. But then I want to add one sort of caution, which is you don't need to fit everything in one resolution. Like if we don't want to drive ourselves crazy, you might have one resolution on Black Lives Matter that hits it and says it and that's it. But people are saying they want to reorganize the work a little bit. there's no rule that says you got to do all that in one resolution. So that's up to the board to sort of figure out how to structure the thing. But I just wanted to put that out there because I heard people kind of, squeeze this in. No, don't say that. There's no need to fight about the actual, limits of the resolution. If you have a clear one and it leads to work, that's great. It doesn't mean it's the last one you're ever going to get to do. Okay.
Okay, on the queue, we have Jan Moran.
I just wanted to express my support for what Mike Geck said. Incremental change, if we rely on that, my non-existent great-grandchildren will still be sitting here having the same conversation. I think we need to be a lot more aggressive than that. And having been on the board for a while and observed the board for a while, we like to take our sweet time on debating the same thing over and over and over again 100 different ways, and it takes us a lot of time and effort to get to even the simplest decisions. And this is not a simple thing, it's an important thing. I think it requires every bit of energy and effort that we have, and it needs to be a top priority, and it needs to be something that we not look at in a passive way, which is often our approach to a lot of things. So everything Mike said, just absolutely we should be taking to heart. That's it.
Con, you're muted. I see Robert up.
All right, Robert Cunningham, you're up. Can you state what campus you're from?
Yeah, I'm from Sonoma State, Unit 5. I'm a steward there and on the stateside committee. I might ruffle a few feathers here, but I think what we have to state what the problem is. We're calling it racism, but the problem isn't Black people. The problem isn't people of color. Historically, we have to own this. White people have been the problem. White people have been the oppressors. We have to own it. If we want to move forward, we have to admit it. We have to own it and say, we are the problem. We are the bigger part of the problem. We have to fix it. Okay. Now we have to do it collectively. We have to do it together. Okay. But we can't move forward unless we admit that we as white people are the problem. Okay. So move forward in that way. That's all.
Kim Parker, you are unmuted and you are next.
Hey there, I intended on just listening, but I was compelled to speak. So I appreciate the fact that this convening is taking place, and I want to applaud Robert Cunningham, who just spoke and summed it up with the sentence, "We are the problem." I acknowledge that we definitely need change. I work for a department where I am one of many people of color, yet all of those people of color are regulated to administrative and support of staff roles, despite the fact that we embody the same level of experience as some of our counterparts, and in many cases, even a higher level of experience. Speaking to systematic racism, there simply is no sponsorship there's very limited sponsorship of people of color, while my Caucasian, particularly male counterparts, even those who lack experience, are often sponsored and elevated on a more regular basis. This systemic racism is highly prevalent, and not just on campuses, but it is prevalent, it exists. It needs to be acknowledged, and there needs to be a commitment to change, and not just in word, but in deed. I don't think it's a mistake that 100% of the leadership at my organization consists of all white males. So you can't boast on diversity, cultural awareness, when all of the people of color remain limited to administrative roles. Having people of color on your staff is not enough. I've heard training be raised to address cultural awareness, the microaggressions that we as people of color have to face every single day. And I don't know if it'll change. I'm at a place where I have to think twice as hard twice as long just before sending an email out of fear on how it would be interpreted. If I exert too much confidence, if I appear too knowledgeable, I'm coined as having a tone, or I'll get a slap on the wrist, while those same characteristics we all know are applauded in people that don't look like us. So to piggyback on what Jen said, we cannot look at this in a passive way. Something has got to change. I yield my time.
Thanks, Kim. Flora Williams has her hand raised.
Hi there. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say I absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much, Tonya. Can you hear me?
You're in and out again.
Oh, doggone it. Okay, I'll start moving. I'll stop moving then. I think it's this bandwidth. I'm so sorry. I just want to say that crap. I just want to say that the book White Fragility, I was not being flippant. White Fragility was written by Robin DiAngelo, and I was really impressed with an interview that I saw for her. I do recommend that book for anyone who says I don't really know what to do, because she covers that. Also, of course, we all know Tatiana Coates. I don't know if that's part of the reference material that you guys have included, but there's a lot of good literature out there that we can all educate or start self-educating ourselves on as we move forward through this. But I want you to know that I really support, I totally support your resolution, and I am interested in knowing what I can do to help be a part of it. Thank you.
Okay. At this point, there are no other hands. Does anyone want to offer some comments the remaining few minutes we have of this forum?
Hello, I unmuted myself. I've been unmuting myself because I can't raise my hand. I'm Guadalupe Lopez, Unit 7 Rep of the CSUEU in San Marcos. And I am very blessed to have Mike, Ariel, and Adrienne, Vanessa in the team. They're amazing. I have been oppressed at this university for, I want to say, 7 years. And they heard about it not from me, but from someone else. And within 24 hours, I was shocked with the backup that I had. The oppression stemmed from me dedicating myself to the students and thinking that I'm there for a purpose to help and be a servant to all the students. And I have been. And my department chair decided to be upset because I was ill one day. And when I came in, I asked him a question, and he asked me if I had just crossed the border. Well, the good thing is that I've had 25 years of higher education. My first one was in Virginia, right by our nation's capital. The next one was the University of Arizona. I'm proud of where I've come from. And I answered him by saying, sir, this is my third stint in higher education. And I crossed the border all my life because I did. I lived right at the border. I was very blessed to be Mexican. I didn't choose to be, but I am. And I've dedicated myself to each and every position I've ever held because I had to raise 4 sons as a single mom, and proud to say that they were never, ever a part of any type of financial aid or financial service of any type. So I was very proud, and I was very stunned, surprised, shocked, and blessed to have this team behind me. CSUSM, I'm there for a reason. I'm there for a purpose. And I think my purpose is to serve someone else as a Unit 7 rep now with this leadership that is amazing in this university. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't raise my hand. I don't have the icon. but this is very powerful. And I hope I can serve this union as much as I possibly can. I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Guadalupe. And I see Sarah Schrader.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Schrader from San Jose State University. I want to express my thanks to Ariel, Vanessa, and Mike for the resolution. I think it hit the mark, and I was recently at an event at San Jose State that definitely did not. And this was such a better event than I thought it would be. And I appreciate everyone who was willing to share their voices with us and let us know how they're feeling. Too often, voices are left silenced, and this was an opportunity to hear from you. And I am so honored to be part of that and to have the ability to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else who's present but are unable to raise their hand but would like to speak, please feel free to unmute yourself. I see Anel.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I want to say thank you for everyone, to Neil and San Marcos chapter for bringing this issue forward. I think it's a very poignant conversation. It needed to happen. Thank you so much for the edits to the resolution and the comments. They were all well received, and I think we have to embrace change, and we have to embrace it now and not just sit on our do-nothings. But one thing I wanted to say that is parallel to this upcoming resolution, I want everyone on this call, if you're not African American or Black or Hispanic or whatever your race is, if you ever observe an individual who is being attacked by another individual, be it a racial slur or some microaggression or other term that is used, please take the time to stand up and speak up for that individual. Yes, Black Lives Matter, and we need everyone on board to start standing up for Black lives. We need it in the workplace. We need it in the streets. And it's not going to change unless we all embrace the change. Because too many times I've seen where people have just stood by and allowed microaggressions to happen. You know, and it's very painful for individuals who really are shocked into receiving this information. And if you have to deal with it every single day, it's traumatizing. Okay, so what we all need to do, and in parallel to this, I want to say this is poignant. We need to move forward with this. And I agree with the resolution, with the majority of the edits. And I know that we have to do some work on that, but we need to move forward. But take it upon yourself to be the change that you want to see, not just stand on the sidelines and watch it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before I turn the forum back to the union president? Neil, I don't see any more raised hands.
Wow, this has been a really powerful evening for all of us. I'm so happy to have been part of this. Actually, I'm tremendously thankful that we have taken the steps to go forward and to be with all of you tonight. I've been in this union for 28 years, and we've never dealt with this, so it's long overdue. So I'm very pleased with tonight. One thing is, when we need to take large steps and small steps, and when we are confronting 400 years of racism and oppression in American history, our next steps must be taken together as a union. I look forward to continuing tonight's conversation and taking the steps to build greater equality within CSUEU and CSU. So before we go, because this is the first one we've ever done, and I just want to thank Con, Jim Filio is our executive director, and Con is our director for communications. All the hard work they did, this was put together by them. And I know they worked with our admin staff and with CSEA. So I just want to thank all of them. I want to thank everybody for participating, the board. It was very, very important that you hear all this, because this is what we need to all work on, like Anel said. But before we go, one last thing. We always, pat ourselves on the back and think, hey, we did a good job. But how do we find out whether we really did a good job and hit the mark for people in doing something like this? So if everybody would take a second to look at, this is feedback for us. It's a poll. You have 3 choices that you can pick from. And it would really help us out if you would just take the time and fill that out before you leave. And I just want to thank everybody again for taking the time. I know it's late, and taking their time out of their days to give their input and share that with our board and our union. Thanks. So hope to see you all, and hope to have another one of these as we move forward. I will tell you this, the people that are on the call, this is an open, when we do this, it's open. In the past, when we had an open board meeting, obviously you would have had to travel to the board meeting to actually be in the audience and be able to participate as a result of Zoom. So even though things that are terrible that happen, like COVID-19, it does things that are also positive. So now we can actually all be in the same room. And all it takes is you to go to your computer and click on a button and log into these meetings. So we will have another meeting, because the board is going to have to discuss this, and we'll eventually vote on it, and that will be an open meeting. So I just wanted to point that out. So look forward in the future to look for that, and we'll present it and put it out there.
Thanks, Neil. Everyone can see the polling results that I'm sharing, and that will conclude our town hall tonight.
Great job, Con, Neil, Jim,
Thank you, everyone. Great
and the
meeting.
presenters. Thank you for the information.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night, all.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you,
Stay
Vanessa.
safe and healthy.
Everybody. Bye.
Yeah, I'm not in.
Say bye.
Bye.
I think I heard Don Marino.
Yeah,
Yes,
You did.
You heard
You
Don
did.
Moreno. Sorry for joining late.
Good night, everybody. Bye, everybody. I'm shutting the forum down.
Okay, good
Bye.
night, Tom. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome, Pam. Have a good evening.
Pam, was that you?
That's
Pam
me.
Robertson?
Yes.
Oh, man. I'm catching up on my list.
I texted them. I texted Marty.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, Pam. I didn't text you. I didn't have your number. Sorry.
I called Don.
Thank you, Annabelle. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you.
Nice.
Good
Okay.
night. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
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 Bye.